Hey, so I am Charlie Goodhue. I'm the Finance and Operations Administrator at the FU, and thank you for coming to finance. We've got a bit of operations in there as well and some fundraising. So I do apologise. It is quite a dry presentation. It's not going to be the most exciting fun you've ever had, but bear with me. We'll get through it together. So just a bit of housekeeping before we start. If anyone's joining us from home, just a reminder to keep your mics muted, please. And we'll take questions at the end if we've got some time. So today we're covering about us, where we are, what we do, your accounts, the different accounts types that you will have for your groups, how to make purchases, how to make payments, fundraising, vehicle hire and Midas, and printing. So about us, most of you already know where we are. We're 4th floor of Pontio. We're based in Student Centre Reception and also back of house. So we deal with the finance related to your clubs, societies, volunteering projects. We don't deal with any finance aspects to do with student finance or your courses in general. So that would be fee payment, also for IT issues as well in regards to your printing for groups. IT help desk for that one, guys. So your accounts, the first one, you will have a grant account. So this is an account where we allocate money to you guys at the beginning of the year. That usually happens in October. The amount that you get depends on several things, really, kind of how big you are as a group, what your plans are for that year, and obviously what you're hoping to achieve throughout that year. So most of you have already gone through that process, and you know what your allocation is for the year. If not, you'll see that coming out soon. So your grant account is for core activity only. So by that, we mean anything that your group needs to function. So obviously different groups have different needs. Some of you, that will be sports equipment. Some of you, that'll be venue hire. Others, maybe, that might be refreshments for meetings, that kind of thing. It depends totally on what you guys do as a group. At the end of the year, the SU will recover the grants that you haven't spent. So that will come back to us centrally. So it's in your guys' interest that you make use of that grant over the year so that you don't lose it. Cut off for spending of funds, that usually happens around about June or July time, but that's something that we'll communicate with you later on in the year. And strictly no alcohol purchases. Sorry about that, guys, but because it is grant funding, there are rules on what you guys can use that money for, alcohol being the big one that's a no-no. So your fundraising account, this differs from your grant account in the fact that the money that you raise and gets put into this account, you keep that. It will roll over year on year. You guys can use that as you see fit to support your activities. So that's for your additional spends. If you've run out of grant money, maybe you guys can fundraise more so you can continue what you're doing. As I say, no cut off for use, and it's purely raised by you guys. The FU have no input in allocating money into that account. And yeah, if you have no money in your accounts, your activities cease to function. So you might find that you are doing a little bit of fundraising throughout the year. One big one about that as well, about your fundraising account. Gosh, what was it? What was I going to say, Sam? I'll probably think later on. I'll come back to that, guys. So new for this year, we've got the RAG Sports and Charities fundraising account. So historically, whenever you guys have fundraised for charity, that's gone, hopefully you've involved RAG in that, and then the money has been paid out. Those funds will no longer be going into your fundraising accounts. They will be going into this account. And that's purely because it helps us to ensure exactly what the funds are for, where they're going, and also to meet our responsibilities as a charity in the rules around raising money for other charities. So it's going to be really important that your fundraising for charity goes through that account. You should all now have access to view that. So if any of you, when you go and have a look at your accounts online, if you don't have access to see that account, let me know and we'll rectify that for you. So the reason we're doing this year, as I say, it's partly regulatory, but it's also partly because we've introduced a couple of awards. We think that it's really important that you guys are rewarded for your fundraising for charity, and that it's recognised. So we've introduced the Fundraising Award, that's for societies and volunteering, and we've introduced the Charity Team of the Year Award for AU clubs. So those awards will be presented at your end of year dinners, and only funds that are transacted through this account will count towards those totals that are considered for that award. Okay, so viewing your account, you can view those here, and finance queries to finance@indebbanger.com. That will come to me. I'll help you out with any issues. If anything in this is not clear or I've gone over something too quickly, just shoot me an email and we can go through it again. Always happy to do that. Okay, so how do we spend that money now we've got it? So the main one for you guys is going to be the purchase request form. So I'll show you in a moment where you can find these forms, and we'll go through briefly how to kind of fill those out. But for a purchase, you essentially will fill a form out on our website. That comes through to us as a team. 2 members of the SU will approve your purchase, which obviously is kind of important to make sure that things aren't getting bought by club funds that absolutely shouldn't be, hence the no alcohol, that kind of thing. If for any reason there's an issue with your purchase, you'll be contacted by finance. We'll get that rectified, and we aim to complete that within 5 to 7 working days. So as you can imagine, during really busy times, that can be quite a stretch for us, and during quieter times, you might get it in a couple of days. So just be mindful of when you're making purchases, how many people are likely to need purchases during that period, and how quickly do you need it. So really think and plan your time around making sure that you get purchase requests into us within enough time for you to be able to actually use the items. So sometimes you might get an invoice from a supplier. Say if you're buying kit from a local supplier, they might give you an invoice. So get those invoices emailed to, again, finance@indebbanger.com, and they should be addressed to Indebbanger. So obviously you'll have no end of communication with our actual address on it. Ensure that any suppliers who are invoicing you use that address. It shouldn't be addressed to your club directly. It shouldn't be your home address. It should be to us to ensure that we can pay that for you. So when you send that invoice to me, you'll specify whether it should be your grant or your fundraising account that money comes out of. And then I will get that processed and get that sorted on your behalf. Important as well that if there are contact details missing from the invoice, such as kind of business address, telephone numbers, emails, that you include those in your email to me as well, purely because we need to set these companies up as suppliers on our system and make sure that everything is above board and is regulated properly for audit purposes. Okay, so we'll talk about when you'll use a financial claim form in a moment, but one of the biggest things that I see throughout of the year is mistakes on financial claim forms, which really slow us down. So in terms of claiming back money that you have spent personally, say you've just picked up a couple of things from Morrison's for your club and you've got a receipt and you want the money back for that, this is how you're going to do it. So on this form, you're going to need to describe the expense. If you feel like you're giving me too much detail, you're probably not. Like, it needs to be a good level of detail for us. You need to include your grant or your fundraising account name and number. That's just so I can do a double check to make sure that you're requesting it from the right place. Ensure your receipt is uploaded. For any fuel or mileage claims that you might be putting in, we'll go through those a bit later on. You'll need to include an AA route planner for that. Again, you can use the link there to access one of those, and you'll upload that to the claim form as well. And then the payer's full name. I can't stress this one enough, guys. The amount of times, because it says account number, we have somebody writing in HSBC, Monzo. Like, that's great, but it means nothing to me. So I need the person's name that you're intending to pay back. So you can find that claim form here. As I say, this is to be reimbursed for costs incurred on behalf of the club. Treasurers, I'm imagining most of you in this room are going to be treasurers of your club. So keep an eye out on your student emails to make sure that you see the links when I send those through to you to sign the claim form to say that you agree with this purchase being made by your club. Then two more signatures from the SU staff is normal. And again, we aim to complete those within 5 to 7 working days. Once they're paid, it takes around about 2 days for the backs to clear. So you could be looking at 2 weeks for a reimbursement, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how busy it is. So again, think about that. And my advice would be that if you are kind of desperately in need of the money back for something, try and get a purchase request instead. It'll stop you guys having to pay out of pocket for things that, you know, you could be getting us to buy for you. So fundraising. There are 2 aspects of fundraising, essentially. There's going to be fundraising for your group, for your club, your society, and then there's going to be some charity fundraising that you guys may be interested in during the year. So we're going to focus primarily on fundraising for your clubs. So if you guys are having socials, you're going out on nights out, you want to take a card reader with you to kind of get some donations in for your club, it's a really lucrative way of doing it. And we see a lot of clubs make quite a lot of money this way. So if you feel like you want to kind of take part in that, then if you head to the fundraising request link, again, I'll communicate all of the resources with you after this as well. But if you head to the fundraising request link, you can put a request in to use a card reader. Once you get an email from us to say that you can come and grab one, come and get it, carry out your fundraising, and then when you bring it back, I'll basically match up your fundraising to your account when you have the card reader and put it in your fundraising. And then you guys can use that to spend on your clubs and activities. So normally, it's going to depend on kind of the volume of that we've got going on. But essentially, if you did fundraising today, you would expect to see it in your account by the end of next week. So just because you guys don't see that instantly doesn't mean that you're not going to get it, doesn't mean that it's not gone through. Cash paid in. Now this one is a bit of a weird one. We're trying to move away from cash as a SU. I mean, obviously the university is cashless now. We're trying to follow the same approach. So cash paid in, really, it's going to be your last option for paying money into your account. This is the one that we will make an exception for during this year, but we are kind of pushing more online payments resources. So to do that, I mean, we do have a couple of sponsors off the top of my head that will only pay in cash. So if you guys are involved with any of those sponsors, then it is still something you can do. So if you pop into the student centre with your cash, you'll be given a paying in form at the desk. Again, you'll be instructing your account, or if it's for charity, it's going to end up in that RAG sports and charities account. But if it's for your account, then we'll bank that money. Once that's been banked and processed, you'll then see that in your account. Banking is periodic, so it may take a couple of weeks for you to see that money, because there is all kind of behind the scenes stuff that we have to do before that money goes into your account. So yeah, this is your last sort of like your last sort of option. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Sam. So yeah, we do prefer the other options, but if you absolutely have to, then cash paid in is an option. So online backed payments, you guys might want to sort of make donations to your club on a regular basis. We do have a couple of sports clubs who do this. So if you want to pay anything into your account online, these are the details that you're going to need. So take a little screenshot of that so you got them. When you've made the payment, if you head to the paying in form and complete that, that basically acts as an instruction to me that when I see that item on our bank statement, that I know it's from you. References, obviously, on your payments really help with that, but sometimes one or two will be unidentifiable. So if you fill this out, that'll make sure that that money does make it to your account without any delay. Sponsorship invoice requests. So this is more for our kind of like AU clubs than it is going to be for our societies, essentially. But a lot of our clubs have agreements with local businesses about sponsorship, whether that's like logos on kits or social media agreements, that kind of thing. I can't stress enough how important it is that you guys get a proper agreement for this. So unfortunately, this year, there'll be no more sending out your own club agreements with your own logo on it, that kind of thing. That's going to stop. We need them to be standardized. We need them to be auditable. We need them to be checked by opportunities. So I understand that Will has already communicated this template with clubs. So if you guys do go to enter into a sponsorship agreement, which can be hugely lucrative for your club, then just ensure that that is the form that you use. The sponsorship agreement from Will is the one that's used, and that is sent to opportunities to be checked. Helen over here will bang it over to the right person and get it all checked out for you. Make sure it's above board, and then you're okay to ask for an invoice. So at that point, you'll go to this link, sponsorship invoice request, and make a request for me to raise an invoice and send that out on your behalf. And it's really important that it is an invoice from us that is sent, mainly for an audit, mainly from kind of like an audit perspective, but also to make sure that I can chase any unpaid funds on your behalf, and that the responsibility for the legal side of finance does not fall on you guys. It has to be an invoice that comes from us. So that is how you can do that. Online fundraising. So a lot of clubs, I mean, RAG is a big one, but a lot of clubs like to do charity fundraising or fundraising for themselves using like GoFundMe, Just Giving, that kind of thing, which is great. And we encourage you guys to raise funds however you see fit. Just bear in mind that when you do this, if the money is not transacted through the SU, we can't track that, we can't audit it, we can't make sure that it's legit, but also anything that's raised outside of the SU that isn't transacted through the SU isn't going to count towards those awards at the end of the year. So our advice on that is essentially that if you raise funds, pay it into the sports and charities account, using the different options that we went through a moment ago. Pay it in and instruct it to be paid to your GoFundMe page. That way you can still have your GoFundMe page, but it still goes through the SU. So it's the best of both worlds. Hey, so